Now we have the first of a 6-episode story, How I Slayed the Dragon, by Bill Nanra. In his own words, Bill Nanra tells the story of how he broke a 20-year heroin habit during his 2.5-year stay in prison. Episode 1, Reality Bites.
Just as you are now, I was in prison. My prison number was A5052EF. That's something I'll always remember. I'd like to tell you my story. You may well think, why should I listen to your story? What will that do for me? Well, have a look around. Do you like yard or bang up? Do you like the screws? A lot of times I thought they were on some power trip, always fobbing you off. To be honest, prison's like a pressure cooker. It's an environment where every difficult situation can get magnified out of all proportion. So how did I deal with it? In prison for the second time round, I knew that I had to do things differently. Luckily, I was able to change my attitude and behaviours. So sit back and turn up the volume. I'm sure you can relate to my experience, and who knows, maybe something I say might help. My journey started in August 2018 on Remand in HMP Leeds. I found myself on C Wing, aka Beirut. As you know, every prison has a Beirut, like a bomb's hit it. Floor all cracked and no colour, just that awful beige paint. Proper drab. And nowhere to sit. The felt on the pool table ripped to bits, never repaired. It was, still is, an old Victorian prison in disrepair. Nothing worked the way it should. Even water didn't taste right. You may well be thinking right now, I'm on a wing like that, with even a longer list of complaints than I had. Anyway, we all know how that goes. So let me take you back to my roots. I was brought up on the mean streets of Bradford with a get-or-be-got attitude. Like most, I was quite carefree, playing footy with mates, being a weekend warrior, drinking Mad Dog 2020 with fag in hand, chatting to old birds. Yeah, fond memories. Still, I was searching for something. I loved to get high, drinking and smoking a big fat L. I had my technique down and everything. No one could tell me anything. I just didn't want to hear it. I really thought I knew it all. But reality soon kicked in. I was taking things to excess. At this time, my friends moved to uni, my girlfriend broke up with me. My parents were giving me a hard time because I was just constantly partying and my grades were showing that. I couldn't deal with things. I started hanging around with the wrong people, but I don't blame anyone. I'm responsible for my own actions. Of course, I didn't see that at the time, nor did I care for that matter, because I came across heroin for the first time. I took gear partly for curiosity, partly to feel numb and forget about all the crap that was happening to me. That first time, I threw up everywhere. But after that, I had a kind of warm glow all around my body. All stress, problems left my body. I was insulated from the world. Man, I gotta tell you, babies didn't sleep as well as I did. I'd finally found something that'd never leave me. It felt amazing. I had that instant gratification. Best thing since sliced bread. But little did I know, in no time at all, I'd be tumbling faster than Alice down the rabbit hole. I was caught selling to an undercover officer, and at court I was sentenced to 16 months. That was my first time in prison. To tell you the truth, it wasn't long enough, because I already knew back then I'd be using again once I got out. Guess what? I did, and it got worse, and that eventually led to my second time in prison. In between I was working, I got married, I had 2 jobs and another part-time, but all the money was spent on gear. I was even borrowing money off my parents and brother, so in the end it all collapsed. I ended up in a hostel. Taking hard drugs is a decision I've regretted ever since. It's been an endless merry-go-round. I did try stop. I went to rehab, Narcotics Anonymous. Like most, I had tried to self-medicate. You know how that goes. We all know it just doesn't work. Nothing had worked. I just wasn't ready. Taking drugs had been a full-time job with compulsory overtime, no days off, 365 year in, year out. It's a slippery slope. It's not a good look. The damage done to your body, your mental state, it takes its toll, and slowly everything gets stripped away from you. Friends, families and possessions. But as long as I could score, I didn't care. I was in a dark place, fucking up and fucking up fast. Ahead of me, in the situation I was in, I could only see two options: death or life in prison. I was one of the lucky ones, eh? At least I stayed alive. While at the hostel, I started doing a few odd jobs, but it was hardly enough to pay for my habit. So what seemed like a sensible thing to do at the time was to start dealing. I started off selling coke, built up some money and started my own weed round. Then eventually I started a crack and smack round. All of a sudden, business was booming. I had all the trappings. I had a German whip and the designer clothes to go with it. I was high as a kite in both senses, and I was loving life. The pockets were fat with arm candy to match. Until that morning, when the banging at the door woke me up. A quick peek out the window, and I was soon wide awake, trying to stash my drugs anywhere out of sight. Meantime, my housemate, oblivious to my activities, was opening the door to a full team of feds. I was busted, caught bang to rights. I was put in a police cell that Friday morning, and I was climbing the walls all weekend until court on Monday morning. I'd seen my solicitor that weekend. I was looking at some naughty charges, shotgun and Class A's, a recipe for disaster. I was facing a double-digit sentence. I was going to cop for the drugs, but for the shotty, I was going not guilty. At court, I got remanded for 6 months to HMP Leeds. Coming away from court, I started to rattle in the sweatbox. No room to move, sat on that hard plastic. At least I had a last chance to watch the world go by en route to prison. All I knew was getting processed might be a blag before I got my medication. I was full of uncertainty, except one thing was very clear to me. I wanted and needed to change. I just didn't know how. But on entering prison, no matter the situation, I had to have my game face on. I got to be on point now, show no fear, even though inside I felt broken. From the first night centre to the induction wing, it was like an asylum, and I was a part of it now. I looked around, everyone had that certain stare. You could feel the tension. It was fuming and bubbling just under the surface. It could pop off at any moment. You had to be constantly alert. Somehow, I had to find a way to deal with it. I did find a way to deal with it, and it's still getting me through on the out. So I'll tell you about that next time.